Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Ezra Washington with Note Distinction, and I wanted to share some information with everybody today. Actually, I ran across a fantastic video. I felt like I was actually in the Twilight Zone or something. I feel like I had just finished some videos talking about these things, and I follow this I guess it's a group. I mean, they're a satire group, I guess you could say, but they also do news and stuff like that. They're called the Babylon Bee. I really enjoy their stuff. It's hilarious, honestly, and it's kind of hilarious because it's like as most good humor should be. It's kind of true and hilarious. So I wanted to just do something that I don't normally do. I don't even have really the light set up or anything. I'm just kind of in here talking, and I'm going to try to see if I can do a live recording here, as if I was doing a live broadcast even, of some of the stuff that I was talking about. I mean, it's just echoing the things. I mean, I feel like I might even be echoing what they said. I mean, this video just came out yesterday, but I wanted to go ahead and get right into it. The first thing that I noticed here, and I got it kind of queued up, so let me bring it up on the other screen for everybody. Here's one of the guys here at the Babylon Bee, and he was interviewing Sam Sorbo, who's a big proponent for homeschooling and other things. She's actually the wife of Kevin Sorbo, that being Hercules from TV, as you guys may remember if you're a little bit my age. We were watching that one in the afternoons and whatnot. But I wanted to just go ahead and play this first little clip, and I got a couple more clips that I want to talk about as they go. So here we go. Here's the first one.
Are gifted in and
Right.
not. I don't know how common that is in homeschooling, but it seems like they spend their couple of hours doing the formal education part. And then my son goes and plays guitar for 8 hours,
Yes.
and he's a lot happier than if they had forced him into this
Right.
program for
Because
8 hours.
There is some sacrifice that's necessary. You can't just have ice cream for every meal,
Oh, shoot.
right? But,
what we're doing.
and so you show your kids that, but at the same time, you're not like pounding them with the education that is going to kill their innate curiosity.
Yeah.
So your son's innately curious about guitar. So why not foster that? Because who knows? Maybe he's the next guitar genius. Maybe he's the next
better than I am.
Degrassi or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you want to foster that, but at the same time, you do want him to get the basics. Let's do some math today, and we're going to do some history because you need to know where you come from, and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that she mentioned there that I thought were really interesting. She first mentioned, actually, he's telling a kind of a story. The interviewer, in this case, was telling a story about his son playing guitar, and she mentioned that, that's something that you want to foster because you have the time to do so because they're at the house and they want to play the guitar, right? I can relate to that, being a music educator myself, a music teacher. I don't like to say music educator. I'm a music teacher myself. I got to break myself of that habit, by the way. But she said, you also got to learn some other stuff. You got to do some math. You got to learn some history so you can know where you're coming from. And that, just right there, as she started speaking those things, I just kind of started to realize that, the education of your kids is individual. When you put them into a public school setting, it still can in some ways be individual, but it kind of takes another back seat from it because there's so many individuals and the teacher has to get through a prescribed curriculum. I wanted to go into the next one, see if I can cue this next one up for you real quick.
And stuff like that. And so the thing that people don't quite understand about school is school doesn't take 7.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's what I was just
I
thinking.
wanted to talk about that a little bit.
It's like I could tell I was listening to my 5-year-old on her Zoom conference with her teacher. This has been the most ridiculous thing, is that our kindergartner's doing Zoom kindergarten, sitting at a computer for 2 hours.
Please no.
And you can hear, and all the other kids, their audio is all turned on.
Right.
And whatever's going on in their house, you can hear brothers screaming at each other, and video games, and like dogs barking.
That's so helpful.
And the teacher is trying to just be like, row, row, row your boat gently down. Sing with me. Rah, rah. Sinking's off.
Singing out of sync.
And I'm just listening to this. I'm going, she's padding this out. Like, this is just because she has to fill a certain amount of time.
Yes.
If you didn't have to, you just needed to do the lesson.
They do it in school, too.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to watch E.T. again. That's what they used to do in the 90s. For me.
There's a
Like,
substitute teacher, I guess we'll...
Yeah, I'm a substitute. We'll watch E.T. again.
And it's funny
And I
because
always cried during E.T., so I hated it.
So now what we have is we have a nation of substitute teachers because all the parents who are sending their kids to the Zoom classes, they're all the substitute teachers because the classes, at least the ones that I've heard about, and I know that there are private schools who are doing all day Zooming.
Yeah.
But for a lot of public schools, it's like, no, you've got 3 hours of Zoom, and then you have, I can't remember what they call it. They call it some free work time or something, where I guess I guess you like log in, but you're not really
Yeah, I'm gonna
in
go
a
ahead and
classroom.
check this out,
I
right?
don't
'Cause,
know.
you know, I know there are a lot of schools that are doing a lot of different things right now. I mean, particularly my daughter, she's at public school currently. She's a senior, and she spends a lot of time on some Zoom, you know. And then she's got other stuff, and she's a dance student. I mean, she's at an art academy for dance. It's a public school, and I came home today from running some errands, and she's in the living room with her laptop or Chromebook sitting up there in front of the TV, and she's doing dance moves because her dance instructor's in her own living room. You know, timing out some music for them to go and do some warm-ups and everything else with. You know, I feel really blessed that we have a pretty big living room with some hardwood floors, but, you know, I can't imagine what other people are going through if they're trying to do dance and stuff. You know, inherently, public school has a lot of wasted time. You know, it has nothing to do, first of all, it has nothing to do with the desire of teachers to try to teach the kids, I promise you. I mean, I was a public school teacher for almost 15 years, and it was my goal. I woke up every morning and I wanted to go to that building and I wanted some kids to learn. That's what I did. You know, it's kind of crazy. I did it for 15 years, and I mean, the pay was an absolute blessing. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't, you know, it was lower than most other professions at the hours that I gave and everything else. You know, I did have summers off and all that, but my goal beyond all that, besides just having a job, I guess you could say, my goal was to go to that school and educate kids. That's what I wanted to do. It's just that the time that they spend, you know, so much with, you know, with lunch time that we have recess, we have assemblies. I mean, on top of the assemblies, the big one is discipline. I mean, we have an environment where kids are with other kids and showing off and trying to hang out with each other and everything else. There's bound to be discipline problems. So now we're spending so much time on discipline. Now imagine it from a teacher standpoint. You got a class of 35, 40 kids in your room. I mean, that's average for me as a band director. You know, we deal with groups much larger than that and some that are slightly smaller than that. Most teachers deal with about 30, 35, at least where I'm at. And you're dealing with all these kids. There's bound to be just one discipline problem, if not 3 or 4 within each class. And so you just spend so much time with all that discipline stuff. It's just time where you're not educating, right? And I guess some people would say that, well, discipline's part of the education, right? It is, and it is true because it's socialization, I guess you could say. But socialization in math class on how to not disrupt a person when they're talking, you know, that's kindergarten stuff, right? But no, you're in high school, and you know, there's some other things like that. So there's another one. I want to just bring this one up too and see if I can cue it up for you real quick. Here it is.
And the school, necessarily, whether accidental or on purpose, the school forms a wedge between the child and the parent. So you drop your kid off at school, and you say, here you go. You pat him on the butt, you know, off you go. The school knows better than mommy. And then the kid comes home and he's been told something that maybe you disagree with. Guess who's going to win that battle? The school will. And then the kid thinks, mommy's dumb because the school told me this thing and mommy thinks this thing. And so they, you know, the kid comes home with a piece of paper. Mom, you have to sign this. Daddy, you have to sign this. Sign this permission so I can do the thing that the school wants to do. And you sign it and you go right under the authority of the school in your child's eyes. It's not, it just is. There's nothing you can do about it. That's the way that it is. But then when the child becomes a teenager and you're saying stuff that the child doesn't necessarily want to adhere to or whatever, your authorities have been undermined. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember growing up.
Yeah,
It was
that one, I spoke at length about that one. See if I can actually bring that one up. I think I have it. Actually, I kind of snuck ahead and put some other stuff up here. Look at that guy, he's ugly, right? But this one kind of talks about that a little bit. You know, I have it here. I'll probably start it up and just kind of give you a little bit of what I was talking about here. And then I'll link to the description. I'll actually link to it probably right up here, right here, so you guys can see it real quick. But it's at about the 9-minute mark of this video, but I'll just play a little bit of it real quick for you. Here you go. Most postmodern educators have made it their duty to challenge beliefs. Not only do they seek to omit specific ideas that might find their basis in certain philosophies, religions, or traditions, but they have also built a wall between the students and their families that adhere to these traditions, philosophies, and religions. If a second grader is told after a game of dodgeball that everybody is a winner, but at home they are told that the winner is the last one standing, it is reasonable to say that this will only be confusing to this child. Now, this is a pretty tame example for sure, but what about how this plays out in other realms of education? As a former public school band director at high school marching band, I have strong opinions about what I think marching band should play at the high school level. Imagine a parent telling their children not to listen to music with foul language, violent images. For the rest of that story, why don't you go and check out the video and the link right up there. But I want to get to the other one because this isn't a review of my own videos. It's kind of crazy, a waste of time. But I wanted to share this next little section with you here too. So here we go. All right, so I found it. Here it is. So check this one out.
Was modeled after the Prussian system, and the Prussian system was engaged in creating an army. And what do you want from your army? Obey,
Compliance.
right?
Right.
And
Bombs,
obedience.
tanks.
Well, obedience first,
and then the
They don't
tanks.
provide the tanks.
Oh, okay.
You give it to them.
Yeah, she made mention of this Prussian system. I actually have talked a little bit more at length about that too, and she knows so much about it. Sam Sorbo knows so much about it. But if I may, I'd like to go ahead and just give you a little bit of example of what it is that I actually said in my video too, because it's not something I made up, and it's not something that she just said off the top of her head. It's a thing, right? Let me give this one to you real quick. Let's see. So here we go. This is how I see the system today. And honestly, how could it be otherwise? In John Taylor Gatto's book, The Underground History of American Education, he purports that much of the current educational system was birthed out of the ideas of a small number of passionate ideological leaders who visited Prussia in the first half of the 19th century, fell in love with the order, obedience, and efficiency of its educational system, and then campaigned relentlessly thereafter to bring the Prussian vision to our shores. To do that, children would have to be removed from their parents and inappropriate cultural influences. This video is probably not the time to travel deeper down. All right, so yeah, I mean that's the big deal that I was talking about, because it really is a big deal that the system itself in its inception meant something. They were actually trying to start something that was maybe even contrary to the way that people saw the world, but there was a lot of people in high places that decided, okay, the Prussians are doing something great, they're building a great army, let's make our school system that efficient. And she was talking about obedience. Man, the obedience thing is pretty crazy. I mean, it's wonderful if you're going to be obeying something that's going to be good for you, but sometimes if it's not going to be good for you, it's something to think about. There's one more that I wanted to bring up real quick, and I'll bring that up for you real quick.
You how to do it if you feel that. I sat with a woman the other day whose son, people are being left. They're feeling left out. The system is like moving away, and I said to her, "What's your main objection to home educate? Like, what are you thinking? What's the thing that's really holding you back from just saying, I'm going to do this for my son?" And she basically burst into tears. She said, "I just feel so I'm going to fail him."
Yeah. A common fear.
And I said to her, "But the schools are already failing him. You can't help but improve upon what they've done because you love him." Mm-hmm. And that's really the main thing that matters, is you love your children and you want the best for them. And so you're going to shepherd them into the thing that makes them happy, the thing that makes them a fulfilling, that gives them a fulfilling life, the thing that puts them into service for other people, because in service we find happiness. And that's really the most important thing. And it has nothing to do with SAT scores.
Man, that means so much, right? I mean, she's absolutely right too. I mean, it has nothing to do with SAT scores. It has to do with where the best interest of that child lies. Do we as parents believe that the best interest of the child lies with us, those of us who have actually brought this child into the world, or are the guardian of this child, depending on your situation? Or is it in the hands of a public system that a couple hundred years ago, or even less maybe, was actually kind of solidified and I guess codified into the idea and founded upon the ideas of an older society that actually no longer exists. I mean, we're talking about the Prussians, we're talking about something that it didn't work out great for them. You can't find them on a map anymore, right? They were already kind of spread around. They didn't really have, I mean, throughout history, they had different homes around Europe and everything else, and they were split at one time in a couple different locations and everything else, but now they don't exist. After World War I, they're gone, right? And so that society had a way of teaching and a way of educating publicly that we are still trying to work out in our own society, and then we're wondering why we're so far behind on the world stage. You know, imagine, you know, this parent that she was talking about. I can, you know, I have a similar situation. Imagine me. I'm a certified band director. I can teach band music and I can teach band instruments. I know a little bit about how to play. My son, he plays trombone. My daughter, she plays cello and ukulele, and they both play bass and, you know, guitar and everything else, and they sing and all that. But I had a discussion with my wife one time, and I just caught myself thinking, and the discussion was about my son taking trombone lessons, taking private trombone lessons, right? I'm a saxophone player first and foremost, but I know my way around a trombone. And I was constantly telling her, you know what? He needs real instruction from a real trombone player. And before you freak out, yes, I'm certified, and I was teaching other kids trombone when I was at the public school. Why don't I want to teach my own son trombone? And then I think about it. This is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the fact, and I see the fact that my son, if he's going to be a good trombone player, he needs to have a trombone teacher, right? But on the flip side of that, as a parent who happens to be a band director, but let's take the band director out of the equation, as a parent, I want the best for my child, the best, right? I recognize as a band director myself that I am not the best if there's another person available that is better than me. At the public school, they don't have a choice. Every single trombone player that went through the school that I taught at, the only instruction they were getting on trombone was me, in a class with all instruments. And sometimes the only time they ever touched the instrument was when they came to the school, right? The parents, they want the best for their kid, but what they could afford and what they were given was me, right? I love it, and I help some kids become better trombone players. It's just that now as a parent, knowing what I know, there's a higher level to it. And that higher level to it comes from the fact that I myself am a parent of my child, and I can see what they need, and I want to give them the best. You're a parent, or you're a student, whoever you are. If all those parents out there, I want you to leave in the comments right now and talk to me about what you know is the best for your child that they might not be getting in the setting that they're getting. Now, granted, very few of us have tons of money to give them the actual best, right? We're not going to have a professional symphony trombone player come to everybody's house and teach them, because that would be too much money for us and the time constraints and everything else. But if there's something that's just right within your grasp to give to your kids, why not reach that extra little reach and grab it for your kids so that they can learn, right? I mean, I could be rambling at this point. I really appreciate what Sam Sorbo stands for, this homeschooling thing. I really love the Babylon Bee. I'm going to leave some links there. You guys got to check out the Babylon Bee. Check out the work that Sam Sorbo is doing for homeschooling in particular. Again, as always, I'm not talking bad about the public school system because I hate it and I think it's worthless. I devoted almost 15 years of my life to it, and I love the teachers that work there, and I love the administrators that work there, and I know that it is hard work, and it's not ideal, and it's certainly not ideal conditions, and it's not the greatest thing in the world, the greatest way in the world to educate kids. And let's be honest, there's a great bunch of the society that is their only option, and I appreciate that. And the work that the public school does on a daily basis is good work, good with the spirit in mind, at least on the individual teacher level, right? The system itself might not be as good as we could make a system to be if we thought personally and individually about what our kids actually need. So if you got a discussion on that, leave it in the comments, check out the links, and I'll see y'all later.